And Felipe, I think we're going to cover the student voice question.
Yeah, so this is something that we've been talking about throughout the state, and that is how do students think our programs are doing? And how do students think that they're doing in our programs? Do they think that our programs have the value that we think our programs have? And I know that this is probably something we've never considered, but um, talking to students about our programs and what our programs offer them and what they like about our programs, what they found challenging about our programs, what they found lacking in our programs. And believe it or not, students talk. They do a lot of research. They make decisions about why they go to IVC, why they go to Saddleback, why they go to Santa Ana College or SCC, why they come to OCC. And they compare programs, they listen to their friends. So talking to students, we can sometimes get the pulse of some of the things our programs have that are amazing and some of the things that our programs don't have and that we should maybe look at. I always tell Lauren, because I'm with Kaiser, I love meeting our students in radiology, or sometimes when I have to get a test, because they always brag about OCC. And so I think that when we talk to our students about the different things that are going on in our program, we can get information that can really help us develop our programs better, or to remove some nuanced thing that we've never even thought about because we haven't looked at it from a student perspective. And so I know I've never thought to engage a student while I'm doing program review, but I do think it's something that we might consider asking, majors, right? Or asking a sample of students who've taken a lot of classes in our program, what their experience has been in taking these types of classes in our program has been. And I think it'll really open our eyes. So this is something that colleges are doing around the state because of guided pathways. They're engaging students, and they're seeing real changes by engaging students. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. So I'm going to take the next part, outcomes, and then transfer programs, CTE programs. If the end award in your profession or your area discipline is going to be a transfer of that student to a 4-year, then this is where you kind of want to look at. Real quickly, I think what's important, obviously, is looking at the gaps, looking at the gaps in race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and where you see those gaps occurring. Also looking at your data compared to the campus-wide data. Is there some reason where your students that are coming through your program or your transfer area doesn't match our student demographics in general, right? And those would kind of be areas where you can dig in and maybe make some conclusions about how you're serving those students. But I think another important area you want to look at in this section is going to be the students' their declared major, or what they show as their goal, especially if it's a liberal arts. If you look at your student population in your program and they're listed as liberal arts, then that can indicate that they are really just deciding on what they want to do. They haven't chosen a career path yet necessarily, or a major yet. And so, when you are looking at those type of students, are you serving those students, right? They may be in your class because they're general education students, right? Because your class is fulfilling that GE goal. So are you providing those students support? Because a lot of our courses might just be for GE. You know, students in your course might be for the GE pattern, and they're not majors. So are you thinking about those students in that either aren't declared, or they're there for another reason to fill a GE, and are you serving those students as well? So is there anything else I missed on that one?
And that was the transfer dashboard or the awards?
Transfer.
Okay.
The next section is going to be employment rate, and I think that's pretty self-explanatory for us CTE folks. Looking at your employment rates, and this is another area where you can possibly look at your advisory committee minutes to inform how your students are doing in terms of once they finish your area, getting employed, and if there's ways you can support that aren't currently being done.
Did you want me to do the success and retention dashboard?
Sure.
Okay. So in that ensure learning section, there are 3 different dashboards, 3 prompts. One is awards, another is success and retention, and then third transfer that Kelly just talked about. But the one on success and retention, we're asked to analyze the success and retention rates of our students and then determine what we can do to mitigate any performance gaps. So I want to go to the dashboard because this is a dashboard that actually has a lot of data. And now I'm assuming, can you see the dashboard?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great. So again, this is one of the dashboards I showed you at the beginning of our session together. And there are a variety of filters there on the left where you can, pull out just your department. You can even look at this down at the course level. I will kind of caution you that if you have a course that is like offered once a year and it's a small course, it's going to be really difficult because the number of students is not high enough to do all the disaggregation. So larger sample sizes are better if you drill down to the course level. There's also attributes such as honors and non-credit. Sorry. And then you'll see here that there are also filters for race, ethnicity, and gender. All right. So here we have race, ethnicity, and then you can also filter by gender. I apologize for the limited categories in both of those areas. We pretty much just sort of follow what is on the State Chancellor's Office's data sources right now. So that's the data that we have. But anyway, so again, you have a visual here. This is college-wide. And if we look at success and retention, I'm up here on this page tab. If I look at it by race, ethnicity, I mean, what do we notice here? I see that across the different race ethnicities, this gap, because the orange line is going to be retention and the blue line is going to be success, the gap is different if we disaggregate by race ethnicity. If we focus, because our Black student population does have a smaller N, but the Hispanic Latinx is very large. If you look at this, their success rate is approximately 66%. And what's interesting to me is that it's pretty consistent. It isn't, this is not as consistent, but again, there's probably a smaller N there. This is a large N and it's consistent. 66% success, where the college average is about 71, 72%. So the program review is asking us to identify these gaps and then come up with strategies to mitigate them. That does not mean that we have the answer in our back pocket. It could mean that we need to start inquiry. We need to have a strategy to do our investigation to find out what's in the literature in terms of improving the success and retention of certain populations of students. Most of them actually benefit all students, in point of fact. But this dashboard's here. You could also look at it by session type, and I know we were here before because we asked about how many students were in the online, live online. But so you know, day and evening are on campus, obviously. Hybrid is a traditional hybrid where part was on campus, part was online. Live online is if any part was live online, and then online is asynchronous. This has to do with maybe special admits if they're high school students or contract education, those sorts of things. So we have this data, we can look at it by session type to again look to see if there are gaps or sections of the data that kind of pop out to you that you want to dig into deeper. And we can also look at it by lecture size. So large lecture, etc. And again, just visually looking at this, you can see that it's not equal across the different large lecture sizes. So Chris, you have a question?
Yeah, when I was looking through this, my first check was just checking my department versus the college.
Great.
And for the most part, my department falls right in line with the data from the college, which makes me think we don't have a gap with the college. And so that's what I'm reporting, but it seems like you're also asking, what can we do to change the college and or our county, which seems to be a really high ask for people that are not informed or trained in this field.
I'm sorry, would you unpack that last part a little bit more in terms of changing?
If I'm hearing you right, I'm not sure if you're asking us, should we be looking at gaps that are college-wide versus gaps between our department and the college? And for my department, we kind of follow the same numbers as the college generally.
Then I would say that's great, but then I would go back a step to see if your demographic overall reflects the college at large.
Right. Yeah.
Given
a couple, 1 or 2 percentage points, yeah, we're pretty.
But even the college at large has disparity for our students of color.
Right. So
if I align with the college as a whole needs to do something.
Right. So, but the questions are, what can your department do? And I feel like our department could contribute in the ratio of effect that our department has on the college, but I
think that I understand, Chris, but I do think that, okay, but if you're saying that your gaps are reflective of the overall college gaps,
yes,
there still are gaps
right,
that need to be remedied. So I would address your departmental gaps, disparities that align with the college's gaps and disparities. So, and again, I don't mean to say that the expectation is that we all know how to fix this, because this is data. It's not contextualized. It says what, but it doesn't say why. It doesn't tell a story like qualitative data would. So maybe the strategy is, yes, we see the gap, not quite sure what to do about the gap. So our department is going to maybe, talk to other departments about what they're doing to help students from these populations that experience disparity. Does anyone else from our team want to chime in on this in terms of?
Well, I heard Chris talk about not being trained in dealing with this. And I think that's an important observation, in not being trained in how to address equity gaps. So I think it's more important to kind of be able to look at if your department has equity gaps, where those gaps are, and how they manifest themselves. So the first thing you want to do is document what the gaps are, what classes they're in, and how they're manifesting themselves. And then you want to, get help from institutional effectiveness and other people who can help you analyze that data, because you have people at the college who are trained at looking at equity gaps and helping you understand like how they're manifesting themselves and why, right? So it's not so much that you're expected to be trained in how to, get rid of the gaps, but because you and your department are the only instructors who actually see the students falling through the cracks and, see the gaps, you're the only ones who can actually identify it. So for example, and I'll give you this example, I think all of us know that we have athletes that don't always do well, but not all of us know exactly why athletes don't do well, and particularly certain athletes. But I've been studying athletes for a very long time, and I happen to know that many African American athletes come from out of state because southern states and other states don't have intramural sports in community college. So if they come from high school and they didn't make it on a football team or basketball team in a 4-year, California Community College is their second chance to get to a 4-year athletics team. So they come from North Carolina, Maryland, Florida, Louisiana, Texas, all these different states. Out of state, they leave their families and everything behind to come to our state and our community colleges to play. So that leaves them very vulnerable, right? With no family, paying out-of-state fees. And that leaves them with a whole bunch of barriers, including they come with a schedule that's preset for them that the college has set for them for athletics. So they're scholars, they're studying, they're playing away games and home games, they're practicing, they're getting injured. I've had students with concussions in my classes. They're missing exams, and not all of our faculty are allies to them. So this is just an example of a small group of students who fall through the cracks. I know that because I've been going to Black male conferences. It's discussed all the time. And this is an example of a group you can study and a group you can look at, and solutions that people have been talking about for a long time. But if people have the attitude that I'm not doing any favors for athletes, they have to do it the same way every other student, then you're not going to close that gap. So that's an example of looking at what you can do. But you don't have to be an expert. There's lots of experts around that can help you, but they're not the ones teaching the classes. Chris, I hope that helps, but I know that these are things that a lot of us haven't looked at before. And I do have to say, I'm one of those people that does a lot of equity work. So it may seem, seem easy for me, but I'm willing to help people. But that's what IE is doing. They're trying to help people look at these things, but they can't come into our classrooms and point out the students who are falling through the gaps. I hope you found that helpful.
Yeah, I'm just,
Chris, I also wanted to tag on that, and thank you so much, Jessica, that the President's DEI Task Force will be coming out with some recommendations and an action plan.
okay.
And so I'm also thinking, and we also have a student equity plan at the college. Oftentimes, the first step is just acknowledging that there's a gap that we want to do something about.
Right.
And I think that the college is moving in the direction to provide us the support to figure out what to do. So go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to note, I think the college is on the right path here in ramping the support in that in our direction, which is great. I'm just thinking if the ask is for us to figure out from our very small sample size of students and lack of background what the solutions are, that it's going to come from below and it's going to go up. That's going to be a big challenge. And so
Yeah,
I think getting the information from the college and the support groups and staff areas that are set up is going to be the most helpful.
Yeah, and I think that even having the department identify the gaps, acknowledge they're there, and then make a commitment that as we move forward to try to mitigate these gaps for this first go around. I mean, yeah, I mean, we're going to be creating 6-year plans, so that we'll be able to move forward. But as long as that's our goal, our shining stars to mitigate these gaps, I think we'll be in better shape than in the past.
I like the idea. Thank you, Chris, for asking that, and Anna for speaking so well to it, because I was sitting here in a little bit of a panic, wondering, well, people spend their whole careers trying to figure out equity gaps in any kind of venue, and doing it for all of our students that might take our courses and doing it well we're talking about maybe a lot of academic research that I'm pretty sure we don't all have time for, but if we're in the place where we're asking questions and trying to bring in communities over time to work things out, that's a whole different situation that I think we can do. So yeah, that makes more sense.
So Kelly, I'm done if you want to move. If there aren't any other questions or comments, I love this conversation we're having here, but I'm finished if you wanted to.
Yeah. I needed to back up a little bit. I apologize to the group. I kind of lost my place on the agenda. I wanted to back up a little bit and talk about the awards dashboard, because this is kind of important. I know we're running short on time. But if you take a look at the degrees and certificates dashboard, you can see where it kind of gives for your different awards, whether it's a certificate, degree, sort of the trend over time. And I think this is going to be really important. I think we've all heard quite a bit about this fiscal cliff that our campus is looking at. And we've experienced a higher volume of courses being canceled, or classes being canceled, and things of that nature. So the IE office has provided some data in terms of what would be a stretch goal, and you can see that there. If you have questions about that, Alex, is here. But in general, the Chancellor's Office has provided Vision for Success data that we're trying to reach goals of improving our awards, degree, certificate completion. And so this is really going to be an important area for you to address in your program review. If it's not where it should be or where you'd like it to be, then you really need to strategize with all of this support, all of these ideas that we're throwing out here today. Hopefully, if we're supporting our students better to get on board, get on the path, stay on the path, that we're seeing an increase in the awards being achieved over time. But certainly we want to be looking at why they're denied. Why are they being denied their degree? Why don't they know what they need? And those types of things can only improve this area. So yeah. Anyway, I'll pass unless there's any questions, I will pass the baton off to Diane to cover the next couple sections.
Okay, so I'm going to just show really quickly the dashboard on transfers. And so what you're looking at here is, so students who have declared your department as their program of study, looking at transfers for those of you who's have programs where that is the option for students, and thinking about what factors are influencing these numbers and what you may want to do to try to increase transfer rates. So what plans do you have to support more students transferring who are in the discipline? Thinking about if if the number is lower, what are some things that you might be able to do? Maybe it's reviewing articulation agreements to ensure that the courses that you have articulate with the transfer institutions where you're seeing the most students or where you would like to see most students transfer. So on the dashboard, you're able to see transfers. Again, these are people that have, or students who have declared your department as their program of study by race, ethnicity, by where they're transferring to. And on the second page, you can see, oops, sorry about that. You can see the majors. So do the majors that they're transferring to, does it make sense with your program? Is it what you expect? And so a lot of good information for you to look at there. So that is the one question about outcomes with transfer. So any questions?
Lauren has a question here.
I think you might have answered it, but one thing that I always struggle with is, so I teach in the fashion department. Many of our students, when they do transfer, don't go into an equivalent program. So they're not transferring into a four-year fashion program. They're transferring into a marketing degree or a business degree. Is that captured in this data, that they're going into degrees that are outside my specific category?
Yes, and Alex is here, and he can, I think Alex is still here, and you can correct me, but that's like what we're showing here is, this is for public health. And so out of our transfers, we have people that go into education, which, you know, definitely could make sense, or into physical science, homeland security. So yes. Alex, do you have anything else to add on that?
Sorry, I've nothing more to add. That sounded good. I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Lauren, and I think it's a great question. I think it's a great point, because as a public health instructor, to see students going into so many other areas, you know, at least now I'm aware, so that when I'm dealing with my students, I think outside the purely public health box, you know, especially since we do have a course that's a general education course. So great question.
Anything else on transfer? All right. Well, then the last section in Ensure Learning is CSLOs. So we've just wrapped up our last round of CSLOs. And so we have a dashboard and a prompt on CSLO, which is pretty straightforward. And, you know, this is something that you all have thought about with the closing the loop. You've thought about strategies, but this is kind of maybe taking it up one level and looking at the program overall. The success of your courses in meeting the institutional standard. Are there any CSLOs that students might be having a hard time succeeding in? And then looking at those strategies overall, and thinking about if there are particular courses that students are having difficulty with. Are there differences by modality that you're seeing with courses, and what approaches you might want to consider there? Let me look at any questions in the chat. So this is just an example. Again, I've been using public health as an example, but you can look, I'm just showing here the CSLOs that were not met or not fully met. There's other CSLOs, but I just pulled up those to look at, because those are the ones that we might want to pay particular attention to in answering this question about CSLOs.
And in truth, to Diane's last point, when we first were looking at how to address CSLOs, our thought was to only show you the CSLOs that didn't meet the institutional set standard. So that was the intent. So I might recommend that when you look at this, go ahead and filter out the ones that you met or that weren't assessed, so that you can just focus on the ones that their students are struggling with. Let's reduce the data to what's actionable here for us.
Yes, and I see Karen's question. It might be that the default, I believe, is it shows not fully met and not met. And so you may have to go, if you've met, or if you only have CSLOs that have been met or not assessed, those may not show up right away. So you may have to go in here and click those 2 boxes. Hopefully that makes your CSLOs show up. Still, I did still blank. Okay. I'll see if I can take a look to see what's going on with that.
There are some that it's not showing up, and I'm not sure if it's just the wrong link is in there or what, but we'll get it.
It might be something with the link, because actually, now that I think about it, when I was looking at it in solutions, mine was blank. I went and I thought it was just something with my computer, and I brought it up from just the dashboard from the resources. And so you can try it there, and then we'll go and check and see if there's an issue with this particular dashboard within solutions. All right.
Thank you, Diane. And is there anything, were you done?
I was just going to hand it back to you.
Great. Okay, so the last little bit, now that we've done all of this analysis, I'll hand it over to Anna to talk about the last resources and summary section.
All right, so the resource section is what we always get. We're being asked about our resource needs in terms of faculty, full-time, part-time, equipment, technology, all those things that we have on the ARRs. So I don't think that that's necessarily needs explanation. The last section that's called summary, there are 3 prompts. One asks you to list your accomplishments. So I know we talked about before, what is program review? Is it us just going how great we are? Well, here's the part that, this is all just about how great we are. So this is where you can list all those wonderful things that your program, your department has done that have not been recorded in the program review thus far. All right, so all those great things that you've done under accomplishments. There's another field that says summary, and it says published. So what the college wants, because accreditation requires us to make available to the public the results of our program reviews. And so we are going to give that to you as faculty in the different areas to write the little paragraph that would be suitable for the general population to read, to know about your program. So where you see that area that says summary published, it's like an executive summary of your program review, and we give some ideas in terms of what you might include there. It's not intended to be a novel, but just a summary, an executive summary. Yeah, Chris. Chris, is your hand up, or is that, oh, you're still looking for your unmute.
It's hard for me to understand the context that someone would be reading that summary in. So if you had a couple examples that you thought fit the right context, that would be awesome.
Well, I think that it'd be like so in terms of consumption, it would be somebody who's looking for a program like yours, possibly, so like an elevator speech, so to speak.
So I think of having our website best represent that for a parent and high school student, for instance, like just having some high school students go to college myself, like we spent time on websites. Is it that kind of thing?
Not as detailed as your website. just an executive summary. So like I said, the elevator speech part of it. So it says, the prompt says, just drawing from your overall analysis, provide an executive summary of your program review in narrative form for an external audience. So here, and maybe it's about your program, but it's about your program as reflected in your analysis. So my program serves, a diverse group of students who are, maybe they're adult students, older adults or whatever, adult students who, and our department has high success rates. Some of those, pull it. So what I'm trying to say is pull it from the program review. Just some key important parts of the program review.
So in there is the mission statement, and I don't know how it's different from a mission statement, but the rest of the program review seems like a lot of, these are some areas that are challenges that need to be addressed, and these are some ways to address them, which doesn't sound like it would fit the summary.
Well, it needs to be a summary of the program review. So, even though I did say it would be general population is consuming this, they want to see how good your program is, or what are the outcomes. I'm thinking about students that apply to medical school. They can always go or to any college, right? They can go to the college website, or they can go places and find out what's the acceptance rate, what's the average student look like. Are they out of state? Are they in state? What's the major? Some pieces about the program that gives them information about the program that helps them decide possibly if they want to apply there or not. So I don't know if that's helpful. So I know what you mean about the mission statement, because I was thinking, well, why don't we just copy the mission statements and put that? But that's not really reflecting the results of your program review.
So Jeremy just asked, do we mention areas for improvement, or is this meant to be good PR for our department?
I would, if there are big areas that the department wants to improve in, I would put that in there in a way that shows you're taking action and moving forward. The department is investigating ways to blah, 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 to improve, I don't know what, but
yeah. I mean, I would spin it, not to sugarcoat things. Sorry to interrupt, Anna, but just maybe, looking at improvements from a positive lens. Like, we see that this needs to be worked on, and we plan to, fix this area so it meets industry standards, or, those kinds of things, because it's supposed to be a publication of the analysis, right? So some things are good and some things are bad. And so we just need to own those things, I would say, if that makes sense.
And, because you say the PR, those spins. So instead of, like say, to better align with accreditation, not to say to get into compliance with our accreditation, but you know what I'm saying. So, yes. So, but I just wanted you to know that would be available on the public website, but that it is in your hands in terms of what's there. It's faculty purview, so it's your decision. Okay, so if there's no more questions on that, the last one is just additional information. So this is just kind of, did we miss anything that you want to say in your program review? So that's an absolute free space to write whatever you want to in there, okay? And that's it. That's the end of program review.